We just ask that, Father, we ask that you would give us hearing ears and seeing eyes and receptive hearts. Make us hungry to know more. Make us hungry to learn. Make us hungry to study, to show ourselves approved as workmen who need not be ashamed. So we thank you, Father. You get all the glory. And we pray that this teaching will be life-changing for those who watch it to learn, for those who tune in to and click on this video. We love you with all of our hearts, all of our souls, and all of our strength in Yeshua's name. And it is so. Okay. We're going to share the screen. And today we are doing part 2 of the covenant and laws. So let me start the slideshow. Okay. All right. Just to go over the names, it's going to take a while for everyone to get accustomed to the Hebraic names. So God and Lord is Yah. You will hear us go back and forth between Yah, Yahuwah, Yahweh, the Most High, and Elohim, and Master. And then Jesus, you would hear us, you may hear us go back and forth. You may hear us go back and forth as Yahusha and Yeshua. Yahusha is the Hebrew name, and Yeshua is the Aramaic name. And Jesus Christ, you may hear Yahusha HaMashiach, or Yeshua HaMashiach. And then the Holy, who we normally term as Holy Spirit, is the Ruach HaKodesh. And Israel is Yisrael or Yasharel. Yasharel, okay? And the law and commandments is the Torah or Torah, as some call it, or instructions, okay? All right, and I just like to state that these instructions on the covenant are by our professor, Dr. Kenneth Howard, and he is the founder of the Hebrew Academy International. Okay, so let's get started. Okay. Now, we're gonna review, how did I do that? This mouse is very sensitive. We're gonna review sin, transgression, and iniquity. And so I don't know if, I know that this is early and some are getting their dinner or whatever. But there are, and you were supposed to do 2 favorite verses on each, but I know that hasn't happened, so we'll move on. But I do want to ask the question, if you're there to respond, which of these 3 have to do, which one of these 3 have to do with breaking the covenant?
Is it iniquity? Is it iniquity?
No, it's not iniquity. You won't have 2 more guesses.
Hey, what's the name of it?
Butler.
Butler.
Huh? Wait a minute, let me turn
Transgression?
it up because I can barely hear you all. Okay, what now?
Is it transgression?
It is. Transgression is the sin that of breaking the covenant. Transgressions, that's the sins of breaking the covenant. Of course, we know that all three of those point back to the law in some way. What is iniquity? Starts with an L.
Start with a who?
An L.
With an L. And begins with an S, ends with an S.
Lawlessness?
That's what it is.
That's it.
Lawlessness.
Okay, lawlessness can still be considered the love of sin, because that's what we have known in it to be.
Yeah,
Like, is
I
that
mean,
sin? Okay.
yeah, you can call it that, but the bottom line definition is lawlessness. When we don't obey Yah's laws. Okay. Okay. Let's move on to the next slide. Let's see. Okay. So we have the definitions, because it's important. It is really important that we know the definitions.
Okay. Sin, to wander from the law of Yah, that which is done wrong, sin, an offense, a violation of the divine law in thought or in act collectively. We've said that sin is simply missing the mark. Romans, what is it, 3, what is it, 8, 3:23? We've all sinned and shall come short of the glory of God. What is that? Is that Romans 8? I forget, but anyway.
That's the strong concordance definition. Yeah, okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Transgression, to fall away, to break away from, to break a covenant as entered in with Yah. And we just got, Pastor just got through asking that question, which one breaks the covenant? And it is transgression, as entered into with Yah. Iniquity, the condition of one without law, either because of ignorance of it or because violating it. Contempt, violation of the law. Iniquity is lawlessness and wickedness. So when you think of iniquity, you just think of a lawlessness.
Okay, so there are more covenants that are within these 5, but these are the covenants that are some of the main covenants. There's the covenant of works, which happened at creation. And then there's the covenant of Noah. Anybody remember what the covenant of Noah was about? What was the covenant? Huh?
That he promised not to destroy the earth with flood.
Yes, that's the covenant. That is the covenant. He promised. And what was the sign of that covenant?
The rainbow.
The rainbow. Okay. Now the Abrahamic Covenant. Take a wild guess of what that was. Any of the little tenets of that? Why did y'all make a covenant with Abraham?
Didn't he make a covenant something about the father of many nations, or like something about blessing his seed?
Yes, that's it. That's it. He promised that, but why did he promise to bless Abraham's seed? And multiply him like the sands of the sea or the stars in the sky. What was the basis of the Abrahamic covenant? Think back. Think back to a ram.
Oh, because God, he trusted God. When he told him to sacrifice his son, and he was about to sacrifice his son, but he didn't. So he trusted and had faith in what Yah told him to do.
Great answer, because he told once Abraham, he was going to slay his son. But once he saw the ram in the bush, and in the book of Joshua, it says that Satan entangled the ram in the bush. So, and Abraham got a little further than was Yah's plan, but then he heard the ram in a bush and he saw it. But because he was going to slay his only son, that impressed the Most High to just a great extent. And he said, because you would offer your only son. And he says that surely blessing, I will bless. He swore to Abraham, surely blessing, I will bless you, and surely multiplying, I will multiply you. And that's our father, that's our forefather. Okay. All right. The covenant at Sinai. Can anybody answer to that? What happened at Sinai? Mount Sinai, I should say.
Then when God spoke to the people, and after God finished, he said, the people said, that we will do.
Yeah, that's it. But Monique, are we trying to wait? But
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but that's what happened. He gave them the 10 commandments. There, he went up on the mountain and he stayed 40 days and 40 nights without 40 days and 40 nights without food or water. And he communed with God, with Yah. And so he came down with the 10 commandments. Is called the Decalogue, or in Hebrew, it's called the 10 words, And so just like Pastor Frank said, once he read those laws, and he also read some casuatic laws, if they did this, then he would respond. So there were some casuatic laws. And so all of that is in Exodus and Leviticus and some in Numbers. And then it was repeated in Deuteronomy, because the ones that rebel, they died in the wilderness. They had to go around the wilderness for 40 years until they died. And so in Deuteronomy, it's repeated to the younger generation. It's repeated to the younger generation. And we have the renewed covenant, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight some. Okay.
To understand the message of the Bible, we absolutely must look added through the lens of covenant. Okay.
Okay. So let's look at, we're reviewing. So let's look at the 6 parts of a covenant. The first part is the parties. A covenant is an agreement or treaty between 2 people or groups of people. So number 1, the first part is the parties. And the second part is the promises. Each party declares his promises to the other party. Remember that Pastor Frank just said that Moses recited the laws and the commandments and the statutes, and they declared their promises. What Yah said, we will do. And it was also symbolic of a marriage. There was a marriage that took place because that's when Yah married our ancestors. He married us, but he divorced us, you know. Okay, so the third part is the conditions. Each party is responsible to fulfill his promises. If one party fails to keep his promise or breaks the covenant, transgression, remember, transgressions, the other is no longer bound to the covenant. So those are the just 3 of the parts of the covenant. Okay.
And it's important to note that if one fail to keep the promise, the other one is not bound to keep their side of it, you know. And well, 4, duration, the length of time that the covenant is binding upon each party. There is a length of time. And because of the causatic clause, you know, if you, then I will. That's more or less the length of time, because as we just said, that if one breaks the covenant, then the other was no longer bound by it. Okay. The sign, often there is a visual object used as the sign of the covenant. When the parties of the covenant look upon the sign, they are reminded of the covenant. This may be an object or the covenant contract itself. And once again, in Noah's day, the sign was the rainbow. And every time it rained and you saw the rainbow, you realized that God had made the covenant with Noah and his people. Okay. 6, the dedication. A dedication performed often in the form of a ceremony. This is often involved the shedding of blood.
Okay. So that's a review. Just throwing this out. Who remembers the sign of Abraham's covenant? Anybody, can anybody take a swat at that? What was the sign of Abraham, our father Abraham's covenant?
Is it a physical sign?
Uh-huh.
Like something you can see?
Yeah.
Was
It
it
starts
no.
with it starts with a C.
Mark said, is it circumcision?
Circumcision. Very good. It's circumcision. That was the
Go
sign of,
Mart?
huh?
I said go Mart.
I thought that was Jay.
She said, Mark said.
Oh, Mark said, okay, Mark.
Yeah, Mark said, yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. So let's look at the points that we, huh? I'm sorry. What is it? Repeat it.
Nothing. Nobody was saying anything.
Okay, let's look at the points that we went over. And the first point is that everything that belongs to Yahuwah is holy. Okay, everything is holy, and Yah's covenant and laws are holy. Okay, hold on a minute. Let me admit, Ali. And Satan wants to desecrate the covenant and the laws.
Why do you think Satan want to desecrate the covenant and the laws? Can anybody tell me?
He doesn't want us to obey. And because you just said that if one person doesn't obey, then it's the covenant is null and void. So he doesn't want like if we don't do what Yah tells us, then it's null and void, and we won't get the blessings and the things that he has for us.
There you go. You guys are really catching this. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, very good. Okay, so by the time Yeshua came, Satan had almost completely desecrated all that was made holy. He had desecrated the temple because there were Edomites. The Edomites were appointed by the Roman government, Roman rulership, as the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And not all of them, but most of them. Okay. And at Mount Sinai, Yah confirmed his covenant with the descendants of Abraham and then Isaac and Jacob. He had already earlier, they had passed on by the time Moses brought the children of Israel out of the bondage in Egypt and brought them to Mount Sinai. But he confirmed, and in detail, he gave details of the covenant that he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And that's why you get, that's where you get Exodus, where he started telling them the laws and telling them what blessings they would have. And then you go into Leviticus, which is a big part of the laws and the feast and all of that. And then you go into Numbers. There's still some instructions in Numbers. And all of that is repeated to those peoples, to the children of Israel, the older generation, as I said, is repeated back in Deuteronomy. Okay. So look at Genesis 17:2. And it says, and I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. Okay, so that is the covenant that he made with Abraham. Okay, and so he made it, and when you actually read Genesis, he renewed it or reaffirmed it with Isaac. And then and he reaffirmed it with Jacob when Jacob was on his way to Rebekah's home to take a wife. So he affirmed, he showed himself to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So that's why we call them our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now I just want to add a side note, there are plenty of Abraham's seed. And of course, Isaac and Rebekah had twins. So they had Esau and Jacob. So there's plenty of Esau's seed. He spewed his seed all over. And we talked about that with the people groups that grieve Isaac and Rebekah. And this is where we get our enemies from. And then he renewed with Jacob, and Jacob is our father. Jacob is we are descendants of Jacob, the 12 tribes of Israel. The Most High changed Jacob's name to Israel. So he had 12 sons. So there's 12 tribes of Israel. Okay. And and Judah is scattered to the four corners of the earth, as it says in the word. But the other tribes are somewhere in Africa. They are scattered over Africa. And so some of Judah is in Africa also. Okay.
The covenant given at Mount Sinai, Exodus 19:9. And Yahushua said to Moses, lo, I come unto you in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with you and believe you forever. And Moses told the words of the people unto Yahuwah. Exodus 19:16-19. It came to pass on the third day in the morning that there were thunders and lightning, and a thick cloud upon the mount, and the voice of the trumpet exceeding loud, so that all the people that was in the camp trembled. And Moses brought forth the people out of the camp to meet with Yahuwah, and they stood at the nether part of the mountain.
Okay. The people actually heard Yah's voice. They were the first. This is why Yahuwah was so angry at our people, because he actually showed no other people group had. He manifest. He's an invisible God, or Elohim, and he only manifested himself to Israel. And so they were his special people. They were his set apart and chosen people. And so they actually heard his voice. And this is where it talks about it. In verse 18, it says, and Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke, because Yahuwah descended upon it in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. And listen here now. And when the voice of the trumpet sounded long and waxed louder and louder, Moses spoke, and Yahuwah answered him by a voice. So they actually, so you see the anger that was caused to Yahuwah by their sin, because they heard him. They heard him speak. They saw the signs of the smoke and the trumpet and all of that, yet they still grumbled and murmured and complained and disobeyed, and even to the point where they made a calf when he was up in the mountain, and even to the point where they refused to go in and conquer the promised land. Okay. All right. So
Exodus 19:5-8. Now therefore, listen at this. Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. Pastor just got through talking about that these were the only people that he actually revealed himself to. And he's telling them now, if you obey what I told you to do, you will be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all of the earth is mine. Yah owned everything. Everything belonged to him, and he could do as he would. And our ancestors would be a peculiar treasure amongst other people. And as Pastor said, we kind of lost that because of disobedience and the way our mumbling and grumbling and complaining. And you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which you shall speak unto the children of Israel. Okay. And then Deuteronomy 28, and it shall come to pass if you shall hearken diligently unto the voice of Yahuwah your God, to observe to do all his commandments which I command you this day, that Yahuwah thy God will set thee on high above all the nations of the earth, and all these blessings shall come upon thee and overtake thee if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of Yahuwah our God. Okay, do we get it? God has spoke, and he wants us to be a kingdom of priests, wants us to be a holy nation. We are a peculiar treasure to him if we would hearken and diligently obey the voice of Yah, our God.
Let me just ask you, let me see who remembered. Who remember what kind of laws that were just read? Exodus 19, 5 through 8, and Deuteronomy 5 through 8, and Deuteronomy 28. What kind of laws are those? Starts with a C.
Conditional.
No.
Yeah, they are, but that's not the word I'm looking for. I mean, you're right.
The covenant?
A.
C is that CAU. Who remembers?
S.
It's casuistic.
Casuistic. That's what they are. And what are casuistic laws again? Because I want to make sure you understand as we go through this lesson. What are casuistic laws? Well, let me put it this way. What do they begin with? What, a two-letter word?
If then.
If. Yes, they begin with if. If we do, then what?
Yah.
If we do, then what? Yah will do. Okay? So what are they again? Casuistic. Okay, everybody's silent. Okay, let's just move on. We're gonna keep hammering it till you understand it. All right. Okay. Wait a minute. No, I'm trying to get why this thing is spinning. I'll tell you what, let me see if it'll go like, hold on a minute. My computer is freezing and spinning. I don't know what the problem is. Okay, let me just no, it's frozen. And I've never had, okay, there we go. Okay, no, okay, going too fast. Okay. Hold on a minute, guys. Hold on a minute. I don't know why that was spinning like that. All right, so let me go back up here. Okay. Hold on. I'm sorry. I've never had this done. Okay, this is what, okay, so then the next slide, let me just keep it like that. All right, so the second part of the covenant are the promises, okay? So in Exodus 23, 25 through 27, it reads, and you shall serve Yahuwah your God, your Elohim, and he shall bless your bread, listen, and your water, and will take sickness away from the midst of you. You see what we missed out by sin? You know, you see what we missed out by sin of our forefathers. You know, he says, he says, if you serve Yahuwah, that means obey him and love him and do what he asks us to do. He shall bless your bread and your water, and I will take away sickness away from the midst of you. Can you imagine that? To never have sickness again? You know, this is his promise. That's the first promise. And look at verse 26. There shall nothing cast their young, nor be barren in your land. The number of days of your days I will fulfill. So, you know, there's another promise. When he says that nothing shall cast their young, so nothing is going to miscarry. That's a word for miscarriage. So, so the cattle and the sheep and the goat and the camels and the donkeys won't miscarry, and the women won't miscarry or be barren. So this is a promise. You see what we missed out on, what our ancestors missed out on. And verse 27, I will send my fear before you and will destroy all the people to whom you shall come, and I will make all your enemies turn their backs unto you. Now, this is awesome that he's already promised that. So that's why his wrath had just was filled up when they would not obey him and go in to take the land. He says, I'll make all your enemies turn their backs unto you. But the good news is that he's going to make our enemies, once we return to covenant like we are doing, he's going to make our enemies turn their backs unto us now. Okay, so look at Exodus 24:7. And he, or Moses, took the book of the covenant and read it in the audience of the people. And they said, all that Yahuwah has said will we do, and be obedient. So they promised this, and then they kept on they kept on complaining and murmuring, and then at last they were disobedient, and the Most High's wrath was just, it was it was just all he could take. You know, he had been patient and long suffering with them. So we have promises. All right. Now, this is Pastor's slide.
Condition. Yahuwah is bound to his promise only on the condition that Israel keep their promise to obey him. Remember, we talked about that early on. You know, if one party does not keep up their side of the bargain, then the other party is not bound to keep theirs. Okay, so Yahuwah is bound to his promise only on the condition that Israel keep their promise to obey him. Deuteronomy 28:15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yahuwah, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon you and overtake you. Pastor just said a few minutes ago, look what we've missed out on. As a result of their disobedience, look what we're in the midst of, you know, and perhaps for each generation, it's getting worse and worse. It's a lady back home, wassa and wassa, but it's getting worse and worse. Okay. And this is what happened. Cursed shall you be in the city. Cursed shall you be in the field. Cursed shall you shall be your basket and your storehouse. And verse 68, and Yahuwah shall bring you into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spoke unto you. Ye shall see it no more again, and there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondsmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. You know, once again, because of their disobedience, because of their hard-headedness, or they just didn't care. And just like, let's be realistic, just like some people, some of us do sometimes, people just don't care. They just don't care. They want things as they want it. And then when if God is not bound by what he says because of their disobedience, and then we want to blame God for everything. But he purposely is telling us now, if we don't do it, cursed shall ye be. What, 15, verse 15 on up to verse 68. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I just want to explain that the word Egypt means bondage. We know that our forefathers did not go back to the nation of Egypt or the land of Egypt. No. But Egypt means bondage, and they didn't need to take ships to go to the physical Egypt. So, but they did. They were on ships during the transatlantic slave trade, and so this is what he warned them. He warned them, and then not only that, but he warned them through the prophets. You can read now. We can read the prophets with understanding because they were so rebellious and wouldn't listen and stiff-necked. And so he warned them through Isaiah. He warned them through Jeremiah, through Ezekiel, through the minor prophets, through Micah and Zechariah, and all. He warned them. But they would not listen. And we have those same people today that are really not listening. They are the Most High always call our people stiff-necked. And so we have that now, that they won't listen. They want to do what they want to do, and they want to choose which laws that they will obey. And then, they deceive themselves in thinking that Yahuwah is just going to wink at that. But he's not. He's not going to wink when we know now. He might have winked when we were lied to by the Gentiles. And so we believe everything they said and so forth and so on. But now that the truth is coming out and the lies are being exposed, he's no longer going to weep. He's good. He blesses who he prefers to bless and so forth. And he's good to those he desires to do, but he's not going to go against his word. So we need to understand that he's not going to go against his word. He is subject to his word. And so he subjects himself to his word. And so we need to understand that we can't pick and choose and then think that that's okay with our Father. And that's why David prayed in Psalms 19, cleanse thou me from secret faults and deliver me from presumptuous sins. Well, that's what a presumptuous sin is to disobey or to rebel and then presume that our Father is going to be okay with that. So he's not going to wink. No, he's not. You know, I don't know how long he might still be winking. I'm sure he is, because he's waiting for us to awaken and to come back to, and to teshuva, to come back to covenant and obedience. So, you know, so this is the mistake, because he was very, very, very patient with our ancestors. I mean, he gave them chance after chance after chance, you know. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so the next one is, next tenet is tenet 4, the duration. Did I have it? Is your time? Okay, Leviticus 26, 14 through 15 reads, but if you will not hearken unto me and will not do all these commandments. 15, and if you shall despise my statutes, or if your soul abhor my judgments, so that you will not do all, is it some of them? All my commandments, but that you break my covenant. But that you break my covenant. Now, before I even go any further, you know, we might say to ourselves, well, I don't really despise his statutes and abhor his judgments, but if we don't do them, what do you call it? Anybody want to respond to that? What would you call it if we don't do obey his statutes and we abhor his judgments? What do you call it?
Rebellion?
Rebellion. But you see, our the Most High, Yah call it despise. He knows our hearts, so he called it despising his statutes. Yeah, but yeah, it is rebellion, but it's also despising. And look at Leviticus 26, 44 through 45, and it reads, and yet for all that when they be in the land, this is the good part, y'all. This is the good part. And yet for all that when they be in the land of their enemies. Are we in the land of our enemies?
We are.
When they be in the land of their enemies, I will not cast them away. See the goodness and compassion and mercy of our wonderful, wonderful Most High. He says, I will not cast them away, neither will I abhor them, to destroy them utterly and to break my covenant with them, for I am Yahuwah, their God, and I will for their sakes remember the covenant of their ancestors, whom I brought forth out of the land of Egypt in the sight of the heathen, that I might be their God. I am Yahuwah. So even when we're in the land of our enemies, he says he won't utterly cast them away. You see that we are still numbered in the millions over here in the United States of America. He didn't utterly destroy our people, and he could have. And so we've got, I don't know what the population is, but I know that's in the millions for us. So, and so he hadn't utterly cast us away. And so I just want everybody to recognize the compassion and mercy and loving kindness of him. Anybody want to just speak on that?
Did you have a question, Jessica?
I said, does anybody want to just speak on that verse 44 and 45 of Leviticus 26? And yet for all that when they be in the land of their enemies, I will not cast them away, neither will I abhor them, to destroy them utterly and to break my covenant with them. He really kept his covenant even when we broke it. So I was just asking, anybody want to respond or just say something about his goodness and mercy?
I love it in the scripture when he pronounces himself like it's like damn, there it is, like where he says, I am Yahuwah, their God, like it's like
that?
Like how you pronounce when you know, especially when you pronounce it, and you make yourself known. Because then when we read it, reminds us too, like he's God, he's Yah. He doesn't need our, you know, he doesn't need our assistance. He doesn't need our validation. He doesn't need our consent.
Yeah.
He doesn't need anything. It's like I am he, and that's
Yeah.
it.
He would often say that. He would often say, I am, as it reads in the King James, I'm the Lord your God. When he would tell them something that he was serious about, well, he's serious all the time, but you know, but when you look at the goodness, he is actually telling us and telling the people about how good he is and how merciful he is. He is, you know, it lets us know that we can trust him. You know, we can trust him because he's so good. You know, anybody else got a comment about that?
And sometimes we need a reminder.
Huh? Say it again.
I said sometimes we need a reminder, you know. I
Yeah.
said sometimes we need reminders, you know, life is, and you know, we tend to forget, you
Yeah.
know, his character. And so sometimes he has to remind us, like, you know, I am good, I'm kind, you know, and
Yeah.
that is a blessing for us.
Yeah, you kind of breaking up, but I hear what you're saying. Yeah, he reminds us, you know, so that's why we have to have a daily reading of his word, of the Torah, and we need to not neglect what we call the Old Testament, because that is the word, that's the scriptures, that's considered as the scriptures. So we need to make sure that we are reading so that you will have so much greater understanding now that you know who you are. And you know that you are his chosen, precious people, and you're the apple of his eye, you know? So I you know, I love to run across stuff like this, you know, when he reminds us of his goodness and his faithfulness. Anybody else have a comment before we move on? Okay. I'm not going too fast, I'm a Mo.
Now you good?
Okay. All right.
The sign. Moses then wrote down everything Yah had said. Then he took the book of the covenant and read it to the people. Exodus 24, 4 and 7. That was the sign. Moses wrote down everything that Yah had said. Then he took the book of the covenant and he read it to the people.
So what is this? Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
go ahead.
You go ahead.
So what is the sign? What is the part of the covenant that's the sign here?
He read it. He took the book and read it to the people.
The book. Yeah, that's the sign. The book. He took the book of the covenant, read it to the people. And see, that's why in the last slide, we were encouraging you to read the Torah, the first 5 books, and to read all the writing, to read the writings and the prophets. That is, you know, that's the covenant that we have. And so that's why we're teaching on this, so you can begin to be familiar with that, because you know the Gentiles, they just taught us to read the New Testament, and they will quote Paul like he was the Most High, you know. And you know, so we want to make sure that we understand what the covenant is, okay, or the tenets of the covenant. All right, so then we have the dedication. Moses wrote all the words of Yahuwah and rose up early in the morning and building an altar under the hill and 12 pillars according to the 12 tribes of Israel. Now, I put this graphic in here because there's almost 12 pillars still left around Mount Sinai. And so you see these pillars, and I wanted you to see that. So and the credit goes to redseaexodus.wordpress.com. I couldn't get that off, so I give them the credit. So that is what happened. Okay. Now the dedication.
I just want to say one thing.
Uh-huh.
Hey, hello. I also want
Hey.
to say one thing about the last slide when Moses read the book to the people. How
Uh-huh.
we people of today. That's one word that the people didn't know, and they will lie and murmur and complain, but they didn't know, and that's in order to cover their sin. And that's what we do it. People do it today because
Yes.
it's out there. They can read it or get read to, or somehow they get the knowledge of Yah, and they refuse to listen or making excuses to even do or try to keep his commandments.
That's
So
right.
even but way back then, Moses read it to the people, but they were acting still. A lot of them was out there gyrating and acting like they never heard a thing about it, or they lied and say they didn't. But he read it to, came straight from y'all's from his mouth,
Yes.
from his word. He read it to them, and they still denied and still profaned the commandments
That
and the
they
laws.
did. You are so correct. And and the thing that's baffling is they actually heard his voice, but they
Yeah,
ran
they
away.
heard
It
it.
gives a recount in Deuteronomy where they
Yes.
heard his voice and they ran away. Moses said, "No, we're going to meet Yah," and they ran away. Moses, you go and see and whatever he tells you, you come back and tell us. And people are like that today because actually,
Oh yeah.
in the Hebrew ways, there's not necessarily a pastor. There are teachers, mores and moras or whatever, elders or whatever, but people are supposed to read themselves. And they're supposed to teach it to their children. Remember the Shema? They're supposed to love him with all of the heart, all of the soul, and all of the strength, and teach it to their children. And it has other things that they were supposed to teach. So, the Christian religion is a pastor teaches everything, whatever. They just go by everything the pastor said. No, not here with Hebrews. No, we're supposed to read ourselves, have our own relationship with Yah. And we're supposed, and then we discuss, and it's an interactive discussion. It's not just sitting passively and like we would in church, and but it's interactive and it discusses. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. We still got some descendants, and we were too. I mean, you're not the judge. Everybody's gonna have to wake up at their own. Everybody's gonna wake up at their own pace. But time is getting short. I ran across, in case anybody didn't know, I ran across an article yesterday that said that those fake Jews, those Khazarians, or Ukrainians and Russian and Germans and all, that's what they're made up of, are trying to build a third temple in Egypt. So things are really happening quickly. The war is excelling, and their countries are being involved. And so it's good to kind of peep at the news, to see what's going on. And the reason I do that is because I'm ready for the retribution and judgment of the ones who enslaved us. I'm ready for it. And I even saw an article where one of these pro athletes, said that he was a Gentile, and he said that they were responsible, I believe, for what happened. They were going to have to pay for what happened to what was done in slavery. So that, you know, they are even kind of coming to the realization that, you know, that, okay, things are really happening here. So, you know, if things are going quickly, it's going quickly. So, you know, we can just try to tell our relatives as best we can. And, you know, some of them don't want to listen. I was talking to my first cousin the other day, and of course, this is the second time that I've tried to talk about who we are as a people, and they had to go because they had something else to do, and that's the excuse they would give. So, I mean, you know, what can you say? You know, you wish they would listen. You wish they would have open ears. But if they refuse to listen, we do like Yeshua told the disciples, shake the dust off of your feet, you know. And they literally shook dust off the feet, but, you know, figuratively, we just say, okay, well, you don't want to listen. There's nothing else I can do. I tried to tell you. Yeah, so you are so right, sis, that our people don't want to listen now. And they didn't want to listen back then. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else got a little comment about that? That really warmed my heart in knowing that Yahusha, not Yahusha, but Yahuwah. I get their names mixed up because they're so similar. But the Most High Yah said he would still remember his covenant. He didn't break his covenant right away. It was hundreds of years, centuries of rebellion and disobedience from our forefathers. So he didn't break it right away. He took his belt off and he whipped them. You know, he whipped them with the Assyrians and the Babylonian captivity, and they stayed in there 70 years, and then they were able to return to Jerusalem. And then he took his belt off and whipped them 70 years after Yeshua. No, it wasn't after he ascended, but it was in 70 AD. And Yeshua had probably ascended around 30 something years back to the Father. So, you know, he's been patient. He has been patient. Okay. Any other comments? All right. Okay, let's look at Exodus 24 and 5 through 8. And it says, then he sent young Israelite men, and they offered burnt offerings and sacrificed young bulls as fellowship offerings to Yahuwah. Moses took half of the blood and put it in bowls, and the other half he splashed against the altar. Then he took the book of the covenant and read it to the people. They responded, we will. It's like a marriage. You know, I do. He said, we will do everything Yahuwah has said, we will obey. And Moses then took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, this is the blood of the covenant that Yahuwah has made with you in accordance with all these words. So just a preview, where was blood sprinkled when Yeshua walked the earth?
Are you asking where he took his blood?
Yeah, where was the blood sprinkled?
On the mercy seat?
It was sprinkled on the mercy seat, that's true. But it was sprinkled when he hung. Well, actually it was poured out because he bled out, and it was when he hung on the tree. Yes.
On the side?
Out of his side. And he also took lashings, and he also had that crown of thorns, and he also had nails in where?
His feet. His hands and feet.
His hands and his feet. So he bled in a lot of places, and his blood was sprinkled. It was sprinkled on us figuratively because, because he shed his blood for our sins. And remember, sins are what? Disobeying what?
The law.
The law. Sin is disobeying the law. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's move on. Now, the promise of a renewed covenant is stated in Jeremiah 31 and 31 through 34. And this is what happens supernaturally when I'll explain it after I read it. Okay, so in verse 31 it says, behold, the days come, saith Yahuwah, and I will make a new covenant. It's really not a new one, it's a renewed covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was an husband. See, I told you it was a marriage. Although I was an husband unto them, saith Yahuwah. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, saith Yahuwah, I will put my law in their inward parts and write it on their hearts, and will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know Yahuwah, for they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, saith Yahuwah, for I will forgive their iniquity and I will remember their sin no more. Now, before I start talking, what is iniquity again?
Lawlessness.
Lawlessness. The bottom line, lawlessness. One word describes iniquity. Okay, now it says that he will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. So that's the 10 tribes of Israel and Judah and Benjamin. Benjamin kind of was melted into Judah, And it says it wouldn't be according. So how would this be different? Verse 32, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand. So how would this one be different? What's the difference?
Say it again.
How would this covenant that it talks about in Jeremiah, he says, make a new covenant, but it's really not a new one in so to speak. So how would this one be different than the one on Mount Sinai, at Mount Sinai?
Give a minute.
You want a minute? Okay. While Monique's thinking, anybody else want to take a shot at how to be different?
Because he's going to put the law in the inward parts.
Yes.
And write it in the hearts.
He's going to put it inside of us and write it on our heart. Very good. Very good. Mo, what you got to add to it? Okay.
I mean,
go ahead.
Oh no, I guess, I don't know. I think I'm probably overthinking, so never mind.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, like Moses took the blood of a calf and he sprinkled it. So what happened with this renewed covenant? Did they take a blood of it? Did Yahuwah take a blood of the calf, or did somebody take a blood of a calf or a lamb or whatever?
No.
Well, how did they ratify this new covenant?
From the blood that was shed on the cross.
Go, Allie, go. That's what it is. It's from the blood of who? From whose blood?
Yes. Yeshua. Yahuwah.
Yeshua. From the
Yeshua.
from the blood of Yeshua. So and in verse 34, and I love the part where it says he write the laws on in our inward parts and write them on our hearts. So he's saying nobody needs to, when we believe on Yeshua, and nobody needs to sit you down and teach you the laws, because now you do need to be taught. But he says nobody got to sit you down every day and tell you not to do this and not to do that, because the laws will be written on our hearts. He will write them on our hearts. Okay. And so, your next door neighbor or your sister or your brother won't have to just continue to tell you, don't do this, thou shalt not, because those laws are written on our hearts. And he says, you're going to know me. Yahuwah says, you're going to know me. You don't have to go through anybody else. You're going to know me. From the least to the greatest of them, they're going to all know me. So this is kind of breaking through now, that we're coming into the truth, but it's going to continue, and it's going to grow, because we know that his Ruach is going to guide us into truth, and he's going to write them on our hearts. So that's why it's so important to be filled with the Ruach. Okay. All right. Okay. It's yours.
Promise of renewed covenant. Question. Did Yah cancel the first covenant in order to bring in the new covenant? What's the answer? The answer is
No.
no. The new covenant is a renewal of the first one. The first covenant wasn't done away with. Renewal. And that's what we've been talking all the time, that some of these Gentiles, they don't want us to go by the original covenant, the first covenant, or the Old Testament, because if we would study and go by the Old Testament, perhaps we will be awakened. And so this was a ploy to discredit or tell us not to go by the Old Testament, to keep us from knowing who we are, to keep us from not trying to walk into our destiny. So the new covenant is a renewal of the first covenant. The old covenant, the Old Testament, the Torah is still relevant today.
Remember, he says, I am Yah and I change not.
That's right.
Okay. I am Yah and I change not. Okay. So we're just going to go over maybe one or two. We're going to have to finish it up next week. The marriage covenant of Israel. Okay, so I'm just going to go over this slide, and I don't know what, let me look at the time, because I don't want to. Okay, it's going on 8 o'clock. Okay, let me just do this one. In Isaiah 54, 5 through 10, it reads, for your maker is your husband. The Yahuwah of hosts is his name. Wait a minute. Need to keep my hand off this mouse. Okay. The Yahuwah of hosts, or Yah of hosts, is his name, and your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel, the Elohim of the whole earth shall he be called. In fact, you know, we used to call him God, but Elohim of the whole earth shall he be called. Okay, for Yahuwah hath called you as a woman forsaken and grieved in spirit, and a wife of youth when you were refused, saith Elohim. For a small moment have I forsaken you, but with great mercies will I gather you. And I think that is a wonderful note to end on, because there's always this promise that he's going to gather us, and he is going to make us that holy nation again, that separated people again, royal priesthood again. And so he says, your maker is your husband. The one who made us is our husband. And the Lord of hosts, or not Lord, but Yah of hosts is his name. And your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel, the Elohim of the whole earth shall he be called. So he's telling us how good he's been to us. Even though we had to get whipped, he had to take off his belt and whip us good. He did, because of idolatry, rebellion, and disobedience. But he didn't, you know, when I used to get a switch and just kind of sting my kids, like, because they claim I didn't hurt them any. But you know, you don't kick them out the door, you know, and he didn't do that to us. He didn't forsake us totally, but he had to whip us now. He had to whip us in our rebellion and disobedience, okay? And he says, a small moment have I forsaken you, but with great mercies will I gather thee. So that is a excellent point where we can just put a comma in that, or a semicolon, and come back to the rest of it next week. So, but you will understand that he always promises good to us. He does. He always promises good. Any comments, any questions about so far? This is just the first slide of the new lesson that we're going to be doing. Okay. All right. Any comments, questions, or just want to inject something? Everybody good?
Good lesson.
Huh?
Good lesson.
Okay, okay. Well, you know, the more you know, you remember when Yeshua said, to them that hath, more will be given. That's why he says, he who has ears, let him hear. And so the more you study this, the more you will understand it, and things will begin to click for you. You know, you have a lot of those aha moments in scriptures that you never thought you would understand. You know, but the Most High is just a revealing, understanding, and giving us revelation of what he says. Anybody else have anything? Okay. Well, I want to rush. Anybody else have anything to say? Jazz, Sister Sean, Allie, Eva, any of you have a comment?
No, ma'am, we're good.
Okay. Okay. Well, you know, one thing about it, now that we know at least as much as we know, we don't want him to take his belt off again to us, do we?
Absolutely not.
No way.
I'm glad you said that. Yeah, we don't want him to take his belt off to us again, like he did with our forefathers. So we're gonna love him with all of our hearts, all of our souls, and all of our strength, and we're gonna obey him. And when we miss it, we repent, we teshuva, and come back to him and return to him and obey his laws and statutes. Okay. All right. Well, let's just pray, and I will decree the parting blessing. Abba, Yah, we just thank you so much for your word. Oh, how precious it is. Oh, it's just like gold that we're digging for gold, and we are discovering so many things. So we thank you and we love you. We ask that you would just magnify your word in the hearts and minds of everyone who will listen to this teaching, and give them deeper understanding and deeper revelation, and give them some aha moments where they will understand what you are speaking to your people. And we love you and we give you the glory in Yahushua's name. And it is so. And now the Yahuwah bless you and keep you. Make his face to shine upon you. Be gracious unto you. Lift up his countenance upon you and grant you his shalom. Go in the shalom of the Most High. Love you all, and we'll see you on the Shabbat. All right. All right. So I am out. I am out. Shalom.